This is Brewing Better Days. And now your host, Eric Hadley.
10 forgive us at 32.
Chris Pruitt, Vice President and General Manager of Nexstar. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Eric?
I am doing outstanding. So I always start off the question, can't have a coffee shop talk podcast without talking some kind of coffee. Question, are you a coffee drinker?
I am.
When you drink coffee, how do you prefer to prepare? Is there like a specialty coffee that you like?
Well, because I live here in Springfield and I also still have a residence in Houston. Here in Springfield, I get the Folgers 18 whatever. I know that's highly offensive right now because this coffee I'm drinking right here is so good. But K-Cup, but back home, probably about to offend again, Nespresso. So I know both of those are total rookie moves here. So,
well, I will just do.
You need to enlighten me.
A little pro tip on those two machines, the Keurigs and the K-Cups, all that kind of stuff. I would encourage you to make sure that you have some kind of cleaning schedule with your machine. So those things are notorious for getting dirty, and if you want to get into the science of them, it might make you a little grossed out at some point. But we were talking about this earlier, and I now realize I was the one that was being offensive. We were talking earlier before the podcast about how I grew up. I wasn't a coffee drinker growing up. I was... my parents pretty much brewed coffee that either came out of a blue can or a red can. Mm-hmm. And knowing what I know now about coffee, it never really hooked with me, right? It wasn't until, like I told you, later on in my career when you're out sailing and you're doing, crazy hours, 20 plus days. Yeah, you get to a point where you need to drink coffee. But
well, I just came back from Costa Rica. I was telling me about that, seeing a buddy that grew up with who lives there named J.W. Oliver. Anyway, I had some fresh Costa Rican coffee there, and I'm like, this tastes really good. So really good coffee does taste really good.
Yeah.
So, there's a difference.
There is much. I don't think a lot of people understand that, the stuff you get off the shelf in the grocery store, statistically speaking, it's been in the bag 7-8 months.
Right.
And like we were talking about earlier before the podcast, coffee, while it has an amazing shelf life, it loses its freshness after, depending on how you store it and depending on whether it's ground or bean, you're looking at 20 weeks. And after that 20 weeks, a lot of the nuances, the flavors, the oils, it just oxidizes and evaporates out. So you're still getting the caffeine.
Right. Statistically
speaking, most people put cream and sugar in their coffee anyway, so they're making it taste the way they want to taste.
Right.
But for me, it wasn't until I started experiencing fresh coffee while traveling all over the world, and I'm like, well, I don't remember coffee tasting like this.
Well, what you made for me here today, I could drink a milk jug full of this. It's really good.
Your doctor might not recommend that.
No, probably not.
I just pulled Mustang, which is our single origin Guatemalan, and just made up a caramel latte.
Oh, well, so, it's delicious.
I'm glad you enjoy it. What I was going to get at earlier, we met back at the Warriors Journey fundraising event, and then I forget the time here. A month or two later, Jamie had some car issues, and so I was taking her to and from work. Mm-hmm. Something that really struck this level with me was maybe 6:40, 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. I am driving onto the campus for Nexstar. The front of the studio, there is a flower bed with some trees and whatnot. And as I pulled up, here you are, you're the general manager, and you're out there pulling weeds and taking care of the lawn care. That just spoke volumes to me.
Well, we do have a lawn care company, but that had gotten out of control, and there were some things. And actually, what I was doing that was my workout for the morning. So I was doing that so I wouldn't feel so bad about not going to the gym. So
Yeah.
I'm a big boy. So if I don't get my workout, I have problems. But no, it's just about doing the work that needs to be done, regardless of what it is. But no, I appreciate you recognizing that. But that's kind of the way I live my life, though.
There's throughout my career, you get some amazing leaders that mentor and teach. And one of the things that always stuck out to me was, do not tell somebody to do something unless you're willing to do it yourself. And that right there, when I picked Jamie up that night, we were talking about this. I said, you realize what that is, right? And she was like, yeah, he's out there doing something that he's not required to do, and it's lead by example. Yeah. And that just speaks volumes.
Well, I appreciate that.
You were talking about working out. I too am a bigger guy and probably don't work out near as much as you do. I was perusing your little, what you called the list.
Yeah, the list.
The list.
I started that back in 2013. It's been going on for 11 years now.
For those that don't know, Chris has started to document a list of things that he wants to accomplish and a list of things that he has accomplished, key moments, special moments with family and friends and whatnot. And it's quite the list. It took some time to go read through, but I thought it was ironic, and I know we were talking about this briefly while we were making coffee. I had told Jamie the other day that I've always had this goal to run a marathon. Mm-hmm. And I told you that back in the day I was training for the Baton Death March, but I ended up not doing the Baton Death March because the weekend that it was taking place was also the weekend before finals. And while I had been accepted into Maine Maritime Academy, I had to have a certain GPA, and I wasn't risking it. So I was like, well, I'm going to ensure my future this way, and I'll come back and do this. And I've, sad to say, I've never gone back to do it. So,
well, maybe that should be something. As I shared with you, it was on my list to do. I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. In fact, it was my buddy who I mentioned in Costa Rica, J.W. Oliver, that said we need to go do that, and we planned to do it, but COVID took it out or something. And
COVID ruining everything.
I know. We could have had so much fun in 2020 and 2021. But
2020 was, so in 2019, we did this event, Beans and Bullets. It was the second one, so I called it Beans and Bullets Reloaded, where we put 31st responders and veterans through 2 days of some kind of training.
Right.
The first year, we had Chris Pruitt and Dave Boom Ben, the real-life survivors from the attack on Benghazi. You've seen the movie 13 Hours. They came out. They taught a defensive pistol course to 31st responders and veterans. The follow-up year, we did a tactical rifle course, put 30 guys through. Well, during that training session, we actually had a company come out, a TV show. They came out to record that as part of their TV show. While they were here, I had made the request to have these guys basically make a trailer for me so that I could put together a trailer for a TV show that I have, an idea. And so we did the event in November. The show on their side was released Christmas Eve.
Right.
And then, so now we're into 2020. We went to SHOT Show that year. I went around with an iPad pitching this TV show to a bunch of companies. Everybody loved it. I even had one company, the marketing director actually pulled out a checkbook and he's like, how much? And I'm like, we're getting ahead of the game, know. But we were sitting there talking with the Outdoor Channel, and I'm presuming you've been to these big events. You know how they always have like the little secret conference rooms built into their displays and whatnot. So we're in this room, maybe about the size of this room, and he gets through watching this 7-minute trailer. the entire time he's watching, I'm watching him, and I see the gamut of emotions,
Right.
everything that I want. He puts the iPad down, he looks up at me, and he goes, "Do you know anything about the Outdoor Channel?" I'm like, well, "What do you mean?" He goes, 95% of the shows that are on the Outdoor Channel pay us to be on the Outdoor Channel. He goes, 5% of the shows we pay to be on the Outdoor Channel. And he starts tapping on the iPad, and he's like, "I'll pay for this." So here I am, like, this is what I've been working for, the pinnacle of all the hard work. And so everybody at SHOT Show also said the same thing. Hey, SHOT Show's massive. Give us 2-3 weeks to get home, get unpacked, get our feet underneath us again. And I did that. Started sending my first round of emails, and COVID happened.
Yeah.
So then everybody's like, well, we don't know what this COVID thing is, so we got to wait. And while they were waiting, I briefly told you earlier, I started solving all the other problems, and then I just got knee deep into what I called the fix it, build it, renovate it phase.
Yeah.
And that took me almost 4 years to accomplish. So one of these days.
Hey, I tell you what, on those marathons, it's I don't know. I enjoy them. I'm kind of into suffering, and when you're 250 pounds, I'm built to buffet. I'm not built to run. And in fact, in kind of whenever my personal journey started back in 2012, I was as the funny thing. One of my buddies says I was about a butterfinger shy of 360 at that point. I was a big boy. I'd been that size all of my life. I remember in 7th grade, whenever we weighed in for the football that year, me and another guy got on the scales in 7th grade. I think I weighed 185. So the coach had big eyes, looking at that. So anyway, but on those marathons, so yeah, last year I'd told a couple of people at the station I was with at that time in Houston, I would do a marathon because I'd done one before. And so anyway, I told them I would do a marathon with them. And so anyway, one thing led to another. Things get out of control with me and escalate quickly. And but last year I did 12 marathons in 8 months. And I actually did 14, but and some of them were ultra marathons too, so longer than 26.2. And in fact, the running on the road got a little boring, so I started doing off-road marathons and ultras.
Nice.
And that was so much fun. But in fact, I've got a marathon. I haven't done one since August of last year, and my toenails fell off. So that happens. I've got an amazing video showing me taking one of my toenails off. But it's a funny video. I've got this little stuffed squirrel that's part of the video. I call him James Squirrel Jones. So anyway, he's in there. But I actually have a marathon coming up next month. I'm going to go over to Tulsa. Or no. This month. It's September.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm nowhere close to being trained, but you just get out there and do it.
Like I said, that's something I just thought it was ironic because I literally told Jamie the other day that I would love to do like a mini try. I love looking back. I miss running because it's like you said, big guy like me, when I'm running, you hit that brick wall. Like this first 2-3 miles is just torture.
Yeah.
But when you flip the switch somewhere around mile 3-4, all of a sudden you just get that cadence and the pace, and pain goes away. And
I've just learned in a lot of cases to just turn off my brain, and I go to a different place. And again, when I say running, that's probably I do about what would that be, about 5 miles an hour. So anyway, but it's slow, and in fact my motto is start slow and taper. So no need to get in a big hurry.
Well, that's inspiring.
I always say I'm a completer and not a competer. So
I like that. Yeah, as I was going through that list, how many marathons have you completed thus far? I mean, it's up there.
Yeah, I've done a bunch, and the running thing sort of came about, later on. I mean, I think about something like that about the running. The first one I ever did was in Las Vegas, and the Rock and Roll Marathon. And whenever I I started with having this, like I said, I was a big boy. And I had, I lost down about 100 pounds and didn't take any drugs, didn't have any surgeries. It was just not eating and suffering. But anyway, but that first one I did was that rock and roll marathon, and it was tough and it was difficult. Whenever I started out, this on my weight loss journey, it was just walking. I think that first night, I only made it a couple of blocks. My legs hurt so bad and my ankles and everything else, but you just keep going. That's what you got to do with everything. Just make a decision, set your intentions and just keep moving.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
Just don't stop.
Just don't. In fact, the tattoo right there, I don't stop.
Nice.
That's it.
Nice. It was funny because as I'm going through this list, there's so many similarities. Like, I feel like almost like kindred spirits. You've climbed the top of high mountains in certain regions and states, and you've done skydiving and all these different things. It's like you're not sitting around, you're looking for adventure.
Yeah, and when even the word adventure, to me, I define adventure as being doing something that I don't know the outcome of. I got a lot of adventure in my life, and some of it is of the type you described right there, and some of it is, some of it may have to do with work. I mean, whenever we take on a particular project or something and we don't know the outcome, it's an adventure. Some of it is just personal relationships with other people. I enjoy it. I enjoy adventure. I think that's what makes life worth living. It gives my life purpose, and it used to be about, okay, well, how can I take this to the next level? How can I take this? Like whenever I started climbing mountains, the first one was a mountain in Idaho. It's called Mount Bora. In fact, there's a video out there. If you go to YouTube and put in search Mount Bora Chicken Out Ridge, there's a video. I don't know how many tens of thousands of times it's been viewed, but that's me, a guy that I worked with, a guide, and then my son that was just about to go to the Marines. He was he was at the back, and that video is about 30 minutes long. I think it's us going over a part of Mount Bora is the tallest mountain in Idaho. And it's a video of us going over Chicken Out Ridge. And Chicken Out Ridge is the place where everybody gets to when you climb that mountain, where you say, you know what, forget about this. I've had enough. And you turn around and you go back down. So that there's a video of us going over Chicken Out Ridge. The guy that was behind me, we were on a belay rope, which looking back, I don't know if that's the best idea, but the guide that we used is the one that put us on the belay line, and I didn't know anything about mountain climbing at that time. And I've never been able to watch that video all the way through. It just, I've never been so scared at that point in my life than going over Chicken Out Ridge, because you got, a couple of 1,000 feet of exposure on both sides, and you're on a little bitty, at points, 18-inch crackledy little ridge line that you're walking over. And I'm terrified of heights.
Right.
I'm like going, what am I doing here? In fact, the guide, to take my mind off of it, he said, Chris, let's talk. And he said, how much would you pay? He says, because, going up is optional, but coming down is mandatory. How much would you pay to not have to go over this ridge line again? And I thought about it for a second, and I said, I would pay $10,000 for a helicopter to come get me off this mountain. He said, you really would pay $10,000? I said, no, I would really seriously pay $10,000 to not have to go through that again. Of course, coming down is mandatory, so I had to go through it again, but it was all fine.
I, too, have this thing with heights. I always try to push myself. So, rock climbing, rappelling, doing all that stuff. And then you fast forward, when I went into the oil industry, I made a transition. It was kind of a step back in my career and a transition lateral to get in. Mm-hmm. And then that first year, I had a series of 3 promotions, got into right to where I wanted to be, senior subsea supervisor as a trainee. I had no clue at what subsea was all about, right? And so here I am, just got promoted. It was the most intense interview process that I've ever gone through, right? So it was a questionnaire, a series of phone interviews, and then I got flown down to Houston to take an actual written test. Then I had to do another interview with the head, and then it finished out with the head of all of subsea. Had no clue as to what I was getting into. I thought it was just engineering, right? Oh no. You get out there, the first thing I'm having to do, so what they call the BOP stack, it's this 5-story tall piece of equipment, essentially a series of valves that they take and they drop into the water and lower it down 12 miles, right? Well, you've got to climb all over this thing to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, with all the regulations of everything, right off the bat, you're wearing heavy duty fire retardant coveralls that weigh like a ton. You've got OSHA regulations, so hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, and all that kind of stuff. When you're climbing, you're throwing on another 5, 6, 7 pounds worth of harness.
Right.
And then you're having to carry all the tools with you.
Right.
And all the tools, we're not talking like a wrench that you would find working on your car. Same wrench is like 20 some inches long that you're having to like strap and harness. Here I am having to climb like a monkey gym up this thing 5 stories tall.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember
the shaking and the in the white knuckle. You come down and you can barely open your fist because you're
Yeah, it's still to this
adrenaline.
day. If I see something, there was a video on YouTube the other day, something with heights, and it was some guy. I don't know whether he did it legally or not, but he had taken one of those GoPro 360 cameras or whatever, climbed. I don't know the name of the building. Imagine it was like the Empire State Building.
Right.
You know how you have the main building and then you have all the radio antennas on top. Well, he's climbing all the way to the top, and he's just out there with this, and I'm just, my legs, like my groin is all like, and I'm like, you get that feeling.
It makes me sick even thinking about it. But the heights I'm not a fan of. But I've been skydiving several times. My daughter Ellie, she's skydived before. We've had some fun, but for a number of years. Well, for about 25 years, I had a bad, back, I don't know when it was. It was a long, long time ago. I was probably in my 20s. Had a bad turbulence on an airplane, and I wasn't going to ever get on an airplane again. And I didn't unless I really had to. In fact, my standing rule was if I can drive there in 10 hours, I'll drive and not fly. And the people in my company that I've worked with here forever, some of them would make fun of me because, like, if I had a meeting in the morning, I'd just drive all night or something. And because I got freaked out on the plane. And then in 2018, I got a hold of a guy in Waco that he taught. I went to him initially just to get over the fear of flying. I did not want to become a pilot, and I just wanted to get over the fear of flying so I could get it. I thought if I knew how it all worked, I could get through it. So anyway, I told him what I wanted to do, and we went out. And he took me on my initial discovery flight. We landed in a field out in the middle of nowhere. I was terrified. I'm like, and if we're going, he's like, it's all okay. It's no big. I'm like, please don't do this. Don't do this. But we landed in a field, and then we got back, and I'm freaked out, and he's like, so what do you want to do? And I said, I just want to get over the fear of flying. So I want to do this. I'm committed. And so anyway, needless to say, fast forward, I got down the road, got over the fear of flying, and then, eventually soloed and became a pilot.
I was going to say, yeah.
Which there's a video of that out there, too, on YouTube. If you want to know what a full-on panic attack looks like, that video, because you got to do 3 takeoffs and landings in a row in order to successfully complete your solo. And the first one, nailed it. It was fine. But coming around, getting in line, taxiing for that second one, that video is still rolling inside of the cockpit.
Okay.
And you just see the sweat pouring off me. I got sweat puddles all over me. And then at one point, I go to take a drink of water, and I'm shaking so bad, I spill water all down the front of me. I think my flight instructor, he's like, Chris, you should not have, went on that, take off that second one. But it's something that you learn to control it in your brain, and you just sort of turn that part of it off, that fear part, and you just say, I'm going to do this, and although everything inside of me is screaming, do not call the tower and ask for clearance to take off. Do not push that throttle, but I did. It worked out. Completed my 2 landings and was officially a pilot.
How else are you going to be able to find what your limits are if you're not pushing them?
I worry about that sometimes. They say the only way to find your maximum potential is to go too far, and luckily at this point I never have. I think back to another instance. This was about 4 or 5. Maybe 6 years ago. I was in my 50s, and I went to, there's a group called the Sankey Rodeo School. They travel around the country, and I went to I signed up to take pro bull riding lessons. So,
I know where this one's going.
Yeah, and it was something else. And so anyway, it was over Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend. So I signed up, showed up at the class. I mean, it's nothing but it's bull riding, and then it's rough stock is what they call it. So bronc and stuff like that to learn how to ride a bull. And I show up at the school, and it's nothing but a bunch of young 20-year-old flat bellies, Here's this old fat bald guy walking around, and everybody's looking at me like, it's about like whenever I line up at a marathon and people are like, what's he doing here?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I did that. That was the most terrifying thing I've probably ever done in my life. I remember I was on the back of a bull, dial 9-1. This, I'll spare you the whole story, but I had a chance to ride. All of these bulls were murderers. And in fact, I asked the guy that owns and runs the school afterwards, I said, why do you bring such mean bulls? And he says, well, the reason why is because I don't want you all, or I don't want these kids to come in, get some experience, and go out to a rodeo and get hurt. Because said here, the rodeo clowns, in real life, they're paid by the people who own the stock, or at least that's what I was told. Their goal is to protect the stock and to protect the rider second. And he says, here we're gonna take care of the rider. The bull that I got on was huge. It was way bigger than the other bulls. And so I get up there, and we've already been through 2 days of school. I've already seen a bunch of people go to the hospital too. Not joking. I get all wrapped in and everything, and and inside my head, I'm telling myself all these, I'm going to take it to the bull. You can be motivated or intimidated, and and this bull is so big, I can't even get my legs down in the chute beside it. He's so wide. And so anyway, whenever you ride a bull, there's this last move you make where you grab a hold of your free hand on the rail and you pull yourself up on your rig. Well, whenever I reached up here and pulled myself up on the rig, I suddenly had a foot on both sides of this bull. What happens is, as I found out later, that bull knows that when he feels you reach up and pull up like that it's go time.
It's game time.
Oh, dial 9-1 tensed everything up, and he was ready to go. and at that point there, I'm going, what am I doing? And inside my head, it's going, just like whenever I flew, it's like saying, do not do this. Don't do this. And they're like, you ready to go? And I pull myself forward, and I shake my head, and about 2 seconds later, I'm on the ground.
Yeah, I know this. PBR just was here, was it this last weekend, and we went and watched. I couldn't believe what I saw. There's this one bull. He had to literally jump all 4 legs. He had to be 5 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Had to be. And it was just, you see, normally they're like rocking back and forth, and this one, he just went vertical. It was like he was Air Jordan. They had to get some great photos of that one. But
I asked my coach Cody afterwards. I said, Cody, why'd you put me on the biggest one? He said, well, Chris, he said, that bull right there, he's kind of like you. He's a little older, and he's big, and he's strong and everything, and he thinks he's an athlete. But like you, you're not.
Thanks,
said,
Coach.
All he wanted to do was get you off his back, go into the arena out back and get something to eat, kind of like you probably right now. So, and Cody says, Chris, please do me a favor, go home. It's time for you to leave. You're going to get hurt out here. And I'm like, okay.
Did you at least get a good photo out of it?
Oh, I got a great photo too.
I got to see that one.
Absolutely. Full in the air. Luckily the shutter frame was quick enough to be able to get me while I was still on the bull, because I didn't last long.
Hey, 3 seconds is pretty good.
Well, it was funny. He said, yeah, you never stood a chance. He's just too big. So,
that's crazy.
Anyway.
What other crazy adventures have you done?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard. I brought my phone. There's been so many over the years. I really just can't even I can't even keep up with all this stuff. Mountain climbing, and I'd never climbed a mountain until I moved to Idaho, and my son and I, we did Mount Boar, and then I decided I wanted to try something a little bigger. And usually you kind of step up, maybe go do some 14ers in Colorado. Well, I went to Kilimanjaro in Africa, and looking back, that's not that difficult. I would almost call it a walk up, but it's tall. It's like 19,371, so it's 19,000 feet tall, going to the top of Kilimanjaro, and that was a real experience there. At that point, I didn't even have a passport in 2016. No. I got a passport, got all my shots, just kept progressing. I'd never been out of the country in my life. I went to Africa and Tanzania and met a couple of guys. One of them I'm still friends with to this day. He's one of my adventure buddies named Shava, and we went to the top of Kilimanjaro. It was interesting. We had one guy in our party he was slower, and the way you get hurt in a mountain is you ignore your turnaround time, because usually the storms come up in the afternoon. You go at night while it's cold and things are frozen. You go to the summit and then you get down quick. Well, we ignored the turnaround. Well, we didn't. The guides did. We got up there to about 18,000 feet. No, about 17,000 feet. And the one guy was going way slow. So he said, here, we don't know if he's going to make it. Take these other two guides. Y'all go to the top. Go ahead and go summit. Come back down. And then we'll all, we'll get out of here. Well, we get to the summit, and as we're up there, we're about to come back down. Well, one of the other guides starts coming up and says, hey, the main guide, Felix, said he wants y'all to wait. Well, I look at my watch. It's like our turnaround time was no later than 9, and it's like 9:25, and then 10, and 10:15. We ended up not leaving the summit until almost 11 a.m. As I'm sitting there, I'm looking, because you're above the clouds, and I could see the storm building up.
Yep. And
sure enough, we got back to, I think it's called Stella Point. It's one of the 3 peaks on Kilimanjaro. And we got hit by a storm, a really, really bad storm. And in fact, it was so bad, we split up into 3 groups. Although I'm a big guy, I can move pretty good. So the main guide took me, and we just hightailed it down the mountain and got back to what they call, I can't remember the name of the camp, but we got, maybe it's Millennium. No, it wasn't that. Anyway, got back to the camp because we went down fast so we could get help, because we've been climbing since midnight.
Right.
And we had to get food and get some help to go back, because the other 2 guys were having a tough time. Anyway, I got down at about, all the way down to Millennium Camp at about 2 o'clock. About 5 o'clock that evening, my buddy Shava got down, and then that night, about 9 o'clock, they rescued the other guy that was with us and brought him down. Wow. And it was it was a crazy. There's lots of details, but it was a crazy time.
One of my, you talked about being above the clouds. So in 2001, I went to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things I did was climb Mount Fuji.
Oh, yeah.
And so going up Fuji, there was a specific point. And we did something different. We climbed Fuji, got to a certain point. It was like the base camp right below the summit, and they have what they called a hotel. Was by no means a hotel. It was more like a pallet container, of just little rooms and kind of a shelter. And we stayed the night and then got up early in the morning and did the summit. Well, completely, that was last minute. The whole trip was last minute, but the idea of staying the night, that was last minute. Here I was, I'm wearing like cargo pants, one of the Flex Fit Under Armour shirts, and I'd have fleece. Here I am on the summit. I've got ice on my beard, and I'm just like freezing. It was so cold, the camera was having an issue working.
Yeah.
But, they sold this thing to us with, stay the night and then get up in the morning and have a breakfast. And, well, I'm crazy American, not understanding the culture of everything. Well, I'm thinking, steak and eggs kind of breakfast.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
It was like rice and some fish eyeballs or something, whatever. Not what I was expecting. So,
yeah, we, I guess a couple of years later, the tallest mountain in Europe is actually in Russia. It's called Mount Elbrus. And me and my buddy Shaba, who I met doing Kilimanjaro, we went and did that mountain.
That's
and
cool.
Climbed to the top of Elbrus, and it was a real experience on the mountain and off the mountain, because it's down in the Caucasus Mountains. In fact, as you get to the summit, if you go off the back, you're in Georgia. You're a stone's throw from Syria, and whenever you down in that area, if we turned right to go to the mountain at a certain point, and if you turn left, you go to Chechnya. So you're down in the areas where they don't like Americans too much.
No.
And it was exciting. We thought we were going to have to worry about the terrorists, but it was actually the cops. And we got we left an airport in what the name of the city was, Minerline Vodi, and we intentionally did it, driving in the at night through the forest to get to this mountain. And of course, blue lights come on behind us, guys with automatic weapons. Our Russian guide is out, and everybody's screaming at everybody and handing each other cell phones, and bosses are talking to bosses. We get shook down for about an hour, and then we get let go. But it was a very it was a real experience going to Russia. I'm glad I did it, because it looks like you'll never be able to go back again.
Right. I was blessed with the opportunity. This would have been 97. Maine Maritime Academy in the summer, they take the training ship, and the junior class and the freshman class actually run the ship and sail it to ports. Well, my freshman year, that summer, we went up the East Coast, went to the site of the Titanic, then sailed over to Reykjavik, Iceland, went up and around Iceland into the Arctic Circle, then sailed into St. Petersburg, Russia.
Oh, yeah, it's
did
beautiful.
That. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then we turned around, went from there to Kiel, Germany, did Beer Fest in Kiel, Germany, which was awesome.
I'll tell you what, Russia was a very interesting place. We were talking about marathons a while ago. I did one marathon. My daughter went. We went to Greece, and we did the marathon, where it all started from Athens for marathon to Athens. I love visiting foreign countries now. Like I said, I never even had a passport till I was 16. I would like to see a lot of the rest of the world. I mean, you can look at it on the internet or whatever, but
it's not the same.
You got to see it with your own eyes and experience the people that are there. Because for the most part, the people in Russia, they were great people.
Yeah.
And we really enjoyed it.
I thought it was interesting. We got on a bus in Russia. Bus is packed, and I had turned. There was an elderly lady So I was asking for some guidance and directions. And excuse me, ma'am, can you? I'm like pointing at the map, and she looks at me and gets this nasty face. I don't speak American. And she turned around like, that sounded like you spoke pretty good to me, but okay. Either way.
Oh, shoot.
You're was going through some of your lists, like your Polar Bear Challenge in Boise. That resonates with me.
Yeah, that's where it all started right there. January 1st, 2013, I think. And then just keeping up with everything after that. You know, every time I have something that's notable that comes along. In fact, it's interesting. Yesterday, a Facebook post popped up on that memories, and it was on yesterday in 2021. Whenever I completed my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. That sounds so weird to say that,
right?
Girlfriend. It sounds so juvenile. Anyway, well, backing up, I was, going through becoming a pilot and everything. I got prostate cancer, so I had cancer and had to have surgery, and that derailed some stuff. And then had to get on some medications that the FAA didn't like. And I got tired of fighting with the FAA on my pilot's license, and also have a CPAP machine that I have to sleep with. So and being over 50, it's a real I got tired of fighting with the FAA, so I said, well, weather, wind, you put that all together, you can do that with a sailboat. And so we were living in Houston. I told my wife, I said, let's go take some sailing lessons. She's like, where do we start? I'm like, I don't know. Let's look at the internet. We found a sailing school. We went and took some classes. I'm glad she was there, because whenever we took our written test, I cheated off of her 100%. In fact, this is a true story. There's like a series, like 4 written tests you have to take. I only missed one. She got 100% on all 4 tests. I missed one question. And what's funny about it was because I wasn't even trying to even hide it. I'm like, hang on, push that over here closer. Because she's super smart. And so anyway, one of them, I'm like looking at them like, oh no, she got that. It was something about, whenever you're coming back into port, the red and the green, red right return and all. I'm looking at, it was one of those, and I'm like, oh no, she got that wrong. And I'm like, I picked it, my own answer. I got it wrong. Anyway, so I got a 98 on that one. She got 100. And so we started sailing, and as things happen, it escalates, and I started chartering. I got my my license. There are no. That's what I love about sailing. You don't need any special certifications or licensing like airplanes. With sailing, you just go out there, and you don't need any of that stuff to drown your friends, your family. You can kill everybody without any special training. But anyway, started chartering a boat, and then a couple of years ago, I bought a boat. Then I started going offshore, and in fact, I've got an offshore regatta coming up next month.
Wow!
It's a 140 mile from Houston to Port Aransas big boat race, and then I love sailing. Sailing it's like turned into my life now. I know you're a sailor.
Yeah, so I was looking through your list, and I saw you had the link to a video about sailing, and I watched this 12-minute long video about how, welcome to my cabin, this is what sailors do. And I was just like laughing hilariously, and presuming it was Jamie on the side recording. Yeah. Her commentary on the backdrop was hilarious. I was
I was trying to figure out what to name my boat, and I can't say some of the names that I wanted to do because it's probably
we can
too wrong. But but I finally ended up. I named it after my mom, who passed away several years ago, and my sailboat's called the Peggy Lou, and that's a perfect name for like a sailing vessel, So and it every chance. In fact, it was interesting. This past week, I was sailing on Memorial Day, and we're sailing, out in the bay off of Houston. And at Memorial Day, that place would just be packed. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge, huge bay, but that place would be packed. But the wind was blowing about 4.6, 4.7, probably between 20 and 35 knots. It was us and 2 other boats out there, and we're like, probably shouldn't be out here, but I was like, no, I don't miss a chance to sail, and we sailed all day long, and it's just, I love it. It's so good.
Well, what I find funny is you said this earlier. I feel like we could sit here and talk for hours about all the adventure and the fun stuff. That to me is, one of my passions or part of what I do with Got Your Six. To me, I think coffee fuels adventure, right? If you think about it as a family or whatever, before you go to do any of these adventures, what are you doing? If you're a coffee drinker, you're making sure you got a nice hot cup of coffee before you get on the road to take the kids to the amusement park or whatever it is. So,
well, whenever I heard about what you're doing with your coffee and what you do with the profit and do the how you support the veteran community and first responders and so much, I love every bit of that. In every way, there's a group that I'm friends with back in Houston. They're out of Galveston, and it's called Skeleton Crew. And what they do is it's adventure therapy. They take veterans with PTSD and they take them out sailing. And it's whenever your wife Jamie told me what you do and everything, I thought of those guys, and there's so many parallels between what you all do. And my dad was in the Army for 41 years, something like that. He went in World War II, and then my son's he's a Marine. He's out now, but supporting those communities is so important, and I really like the work that you're doing here.
Well, I was raised in Texas on the values of first responder, firefighter, police officer, veterans. These are the people you respect. They're people that go out there to protect us, and it's our duty to make sure that we show them the respect and the honor, and then do whatever we can to take care of them. So I appreciate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm getting a little bit of exposure to the first responder community and stuff. I don't know. I guess it was about 5 months ago. I would drive back and forth from where I live here in Springfield to the station, and I would pass this place called 417 Jiu-Jitsu on Commercial Street, owned by a guy named Glenn. Yep. And one day, I just feel like it's never too late to become the person you always wanted to be. And I'd had on my list to earn a belt in martial arts. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe today's the day. And so I sent an email to Glenn. And then the next day I told him, I said, I'll be there at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And the next day I showed up at 4 o'clock, met Glenn. We hit it off. And so then the next morning at 6 a.m. I show up to start learning jiu-jitsu. And there's a lot of guys from the from the first responder, law enforcement, and security that are in that class, and they're all just awesome guys, and great guys to hang out with. That's for sure.
You're talking, what was it, 417 BJJ?
Yeah.
So Glenn Cousins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny. Whenever I was there that afternoon, we were talking, and somehow he started talking about kayaking and stuff, and I said, I won't go into it, but me and a buddy named Charlie, we, because that's the whole story, we did this crazy canoe race. It's the world's toughest, it's the world's most difficult canoe race. You basically get in a canoe and you take it from what is essentially Austin, Texas, down the Guadalupe River to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
365 miles in a canoe, and you have 100 hours to do it, and most people train all year, have a team of 3 to 6, and you got professional support. It was me and my buddy Charlie that's built about like me. My 2 kids were our support. We did an old junky rental canoe with no training, and we finished it. Took us 81 hours, and that's a whole story. The hallucinations that happened at about hour 40 are pretty incredible. But Glenn and I were talking, and I tell him that I sell. And he said, I've always wanted to learn how to sell. I said, well, I'll tell you what, it's your lucky week. I'm going back home this Friday to Houston. I said, if you want to come with me, my wife's even out of town, just come with me. I'll teach you how to sell this weekend. He said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm serious. You stay at my house. We'll fly. $250 plane ticket. And he said, well, I'm serious if you're serious. I'm like, I'm serious if you're serious, back and forth. This guy that I just met. And he said, okay. He bought a plane ticket. He went back home.
I'm going to have to text him on that one. So, I'm going to have to text him on that one.
Oh, yeah. He's certified, too.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, we could sit here and talk forever on the list. I do have a couple quick questions. One of the things with your experience, and I don't want to dive in too much on particulars, more of like high-level management side, because I know my audience, a lot of people aspire. What would be one of the greatest books that you could encourage somebody to read that is educational or inspirational for somebody who's getting into management or leadership?
Oh, that's easy. Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
Extreme ownership. No bad teams, only bad leaders.
Yeah.
Fact right there on that tattoo, discipline equals freedom, man. That's what it is. That's what it's all about. I have these tattoos whenever I'm out there, pushing it, getting after it. They're the reminders, don't stop, don't give up, just keep going, and it is true, that book, Extreme Ownership, I think ought to be mandatory reading. Although it comes from a military, because Jocko was a Navy SEAL.
Yep.
It is the best book I've ever read on management, because he walks you right through every piece and part of it, and tells a really great, interesting story that goes along with each side. But the thing that sticks with me the most is no bad teams, only bad leaders.
Yep.
And that's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We could talk about that for a long time.
That one, maybe I'll have you back on one and we just talk about leadership, and because it's that stuff has always fascinated me. And then I've been talking a lot with Jamie the last couple of years. Throughout my career, I was always in positions of leadership or management, and it's amazing at how much I miss it. Right.
Yeah.
The last couple of years with Got Your Six, primarily it's been a one-man bandstand with some volunteers that are helping out. And one of my biggest complaints as of late with Jamie is that I find myself working in the business versus working on the business. And now that I have learned all these lessons, there's so many things that I know that I've tested and proven, and I just need to go do them. And it's, how do you do that when you have to maintain by working in the business?
Right.
And so it's one of my prayers. I'm looking forward to being able to get in and actually implement a team, because that, even then, like, once you have a team, what is it you do with a team, right? I want to build a team, a culture, an environment that thrives. My opinion, in management, your sole responsibility is to take care of your team, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking care of your team's going to take care of you. And so
you got to care more about them than you do about yourself.
Yep.
And I'll tell you another, because I'm a reader, and when I say that, I listen on Audible.
Same thing.
I got a little reading issues. So, but the anything by John Maxwell, anything, just pick a book. I mean, it's you got to get new things on board, and that's what. In fact, I'm in conversations at work right now, trying to get more people to. You got to put new information in if you want to get something different out. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing the same thing over and over and over.
Yep.
And if I can, with my little $14 membership on Audible, I can download a book and read that book and get somebody's 20, 25, 30 years worth of knowledge and experience in a few hours, why would I not do it?
Right.
I mean, it only makes sense.
Yeah. That's ever since when I started Got Your Six, it was definitely a lot easier in the beginning because Jamie was still down in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And so I was driving, 6 hours there, 6 hours back. It was not hard to knock out one or two books, right? But fast forward, that relationship evolves. Jamie moves up here. But even then, I've probably read more books in the last 8 years than I have my entire 40 other years of my life.
Well, and you just have to find a way to make time for it and treat it as if it's something important. I do it a lot whenever I'm working out or something like that. And it's just about how much you can fit into a day. People ask me, how do you find the time to do the things you want to do? Well, the reason
I don't do TikTok.
Yeah, I use most hours in my day. I mean, last night I would like to watch the Chiefs game, but you know what? I've got a commitment on Thursday nights that I go jiu-jitsu with Glenn, and I'm going to go do it because that was my commitment that I made. And you just, that's the discipline equals freedom, and you honor those commitments.
Yeah, so good. Well, I know the true meaning and value of time, and we're getting close to an hour here, so
that's cool.
I can only imagine the scope of everything that you've got to do. So I want to make sure that I'm not taking too much of your time, but. With regards to management, you said you've been with Nexstar for years.
Years, yeah. Since
have you been on the management side the whole time, or
no? I started out as a sales guy,
okay.
And I did that for I think about 3 years, and then became a sales manager and a local sales manager, and then got my own shop, running my own sales team in Midland, Texas, and then it was in Midland and. I don't know, maybe 2004, I got my first opportunity to manage, an operation, and then I've been doing it ever since. And I did have a 5-year period where I left the company and moved to Idaho to work with a friend up there who was a radio guy and bought a TV station and needed some help. Really, moving to Idaho was probably one of the best things I ever did. It's won't go deep into it because it's still a difficult conversation to have. But my daughter got sick. She's fine now, but she got cancer.
Yeah.
And whenever we were in Idaho, and it's interesting, you were just sharing a while ago something big that happened on your birthday. Well, on my birthday, my buddy that I moved up there to help, he passed away.
Oh.
And that was in 2012. So my daughter got sick in 2011 with cancer. And then my buddy passed away on my birthday, July 22nd, 2012. If anybody wants to send any birthday presents, by the way, next year. But
I'll post the address for you.
Please do that. So anyway, and that was really the turning point. But and being in Idaho, it's literally what saved my daughter's life because she got into a children's cancer program and into a trial that got her well, but it was up there really where things started to change in my life. In fact, we were talking about making time. How much time you have. Well, during that period there, whenever I decided to change the way I live, so my daughter has cancer, my buddy passes away. I'm trying to do a turnaround on the operation there, and right after he passed away, he died of a heart attack, and he was not much older than I was at that time, and great health and everything else. But I looked at myself in the mirror, and 360 pounds, workaholic, and I'm like, something's got to give,
right?
And and it was just making a decision to change, and it's about then having to figure out how to do it, and then stick with it and not stop and not give up.
Well, that is.
It was a tough period of my time. So, and to kind of come back on that. So, if I could find the time to make time to do the things that we were having to do with my daughter and get a business that turned back around and then deal with my own health, we all have time. I'm not saying everybody could do it. And that's another thing. I don't really, I've got my little website where I keep up with stuff, but I don't really, I write a lot. I write every day just about. And I'll go through periods where I'll share it a little bit, but then I'll stop because I don't, I do that. I do what I do to set a good example for my kids.
Yes.
And I just, I used to share. I'd share what I would write, and I'm not that good of a writer. My wife says I'm good, but I don't think I'm very good because I write like I talk, and I'm, a CD student from Wichita Falls, Texas. So, so what are you going to get out of that? But I go through these periods, where I'll share, and it's like it feels odd, It's like because I'm a shipwreck. I've learned through a lot of errors. I'm probably I'm that place, that rocky point off the shore that needs to be avoided. I serve as a good beacon or warning to others, but so I can't. I'll write, and I just want tell my story, or tell my stories, and I don't want to give people advice or tell them how to live their life or compare, and then every now and then you'll talk about something. Even coming here and talking to you today, I'm sitting here in the back of my mind going, some of this feels like some sort of bragging or something. It's just. Well, I just tell a story.
In my opinion, we're here on this earth on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. We're designed to do life together. And the way I see it, you may say it's bragging. I don't see it as bragging at all. If anything, it's you're sharing your experiences. I try and drill it into my kids. I have lots of wisdom. I have gotten the snot kicked out of me throughout my life. There's been a lot of times where I've learned through failure. Right? You can't have success without failure. There's always more failure than there is success. To me, it's those who are crazy enough that are willing to go through that pain to get those little moments of success, because that's the treasure. Right? And so if I can sit here and teach my kids and say, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot, and I can keep them from touching the stove. Yeah.
All right. See, that's the conundrum that I think my oldest, so my kids now are 29, 27, and 24. Yeah. 2 sons, and the youngest is a daughter. My oldest was about 15 at the time, and their mother and I, we just made this decision. We were going to stop solving our kids' problems for them. And it's hard. It's hard, especially with these kids being older now. But we came to this realization that every time that we solve a problem for them, we rob them of the opportunity.
Yes.
But as parents, because my wife and my ex-wife now, we were married for 28 years, but we didn't want them to suffer, to go through what we had to go through.
Right.
And so we would snap our fingers and make it go away. But we, it was this realization of just every time we do that, we rob them of that opportunity, because it was those things that made us who we are, today. And if we don't allow them to experience it and figure it out, we'll save them from catastrophe.
Right.
But man, you've got to let them weather that storm, and it is so hard. But again, I look down at the tattoo on discipline equals freedom. It's like, have the discipline to let this happen to them, and then they will figure it out. And if the pain's great enough, well, then they'll never make that mistake again.
Right.
But they got to feel that pain. And that's the way it is, I think, in all parts of our life too. We learn what not to do through pain.
That is so true. Yeah, so if any of the kids are out there, listen to this.
You don't want me as a parent, so I'm like, okay.
You can go learn on your own, or maybe, just maybe, like, step outside your shell and be like, what is trying to be communicated here? That's raising kids has been literally one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. It's also been one of the most mind-boggling, like...
Oh, I know. Yeah, my daughter was just in fact, over the weekend, her and her boyfriend, they came to Houston, and we all went out sailing and stuff. And I love these adventures that I do. You know, a lot of them I may do on my own, but they are best whenever they're experienced with other people too. You know, I had an assistant that she told me one year, she said, Chris, on my birthday next year, I want to go skydiving. Again, I don't like heights. And I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. Her name's Tammy. Back in Waco. I said, yeah, I'll go with you next year. I never expected her. About a week before her birthday the next year, she says, are you ready? And I'm like, I don't want to go do this again. And I'm like, okay, you know, a commitment's a commitment. And we went and did it. And that's a whole other story there too.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I greatly appreciate you coming out today.
Sure.
Dropping little tidbits of wisdom, the conversations with the adventure and everything. That it kind of reignites some of the stuff for me with everything. You know, like I told you before we actually started talking, Jamie makes fun of me because she tells me, you know, I need to write a book, and oh yeah, I know you've done this, done that. I'm not trying to brag. I think I've lived a very blessed life and have had the ability to seize a lot of opportunities. You know, and I'm the type of person, I want that experience. I want to go do the things that other people aren't doing to be able to live life. So can definitely tell. I mean, your list is amazing. We didn't even barely scratch the surface on anything.
If you ever need a wingman, I'm your guy. Hey, you want to run a marathon? Just pick one. I'll go do it with you.
White Sands, Baton Death March.
Earlier this year, I had a let's make a commitment.
Let's do it.
I'm not joking.
I'm not either.
All right. Well, then that's how it starts.
Next year,
right there.
Next year, it's I believe it'll be March or April.
We will figure it out. So that's a real booger bear right there. That's not easy. It's a big walk with, I think, like a 45-pound rucksack.
You can do a variety of different. You can run it. So I know a lot of the military, they'll run it with a rucksack. You know, kind of like the Ranger Challenge, that kind of stuff. When I was training, this would have been 95. Or no, not 95. This would have been 97.
Yeah.
My goal was just go run it. You know, I'm not out to prove anything, 50-pound rucksack or any of that. I know I just want to go do it because I've never done, up until that point, the longest I'd ever ridden or run was maybe, 2-3 miles?
Right.
3 miles maybe. But training for Baton, we were doing anywhere between 5 and 10 miles a day.
Yeah.
And I've got one story. It was a Friday. It was the first time I've ever run 10 miles straight. Right. And so it was on a Friday. A bunch of us had plans to go watch a movie. We're in Roswell, New Mexico, at New Mexico Military Institute. The plan was to go watch a movie that night. We get done running. I'm feeling great. We get back. I felt great all the way up until the point where I stepped into the shower. Yeah. As soon as I stepped in the shower, the hot water hit me, and I was just putty, like just melted, throwing up, nauseous.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did the best I could just to get back into bed. And back then at New Mexico, we had keypads for our doors. The cadre could come around, doing checks at night, and they just key into your room. So they came in, they're like, "Oh, you ready to go?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Yeah.
Well, so they left, I literally laid there for 2-3 hours, right? I've exhausted everything that was in my stomach out of my stomach.
Yeah.
And it was so cool in that they got back from the movie. I'm sitting there, I'm like going in and out of sleep, just feeling like dirt. All of a sudden, they come in and they brought an entire jar, like the massive jug of applesauce. I ate the whole thing. And it was, I can't remember an apple tasting or applesauce tasting so good. And it was just,
that is a good thing. You know, sometimes you do have to, in those times that you do suffer a little bit, you know, it's, you learn to deal with it better. I think it's like a muscle.
Yep.
You know, and you get better at it and better at it, and then on the other side of that, it makes you appreciate things a whole lot more. And like if you've been up there, you know, climbing a mountain for 2 weeks or something like that, and you come back and you get in that shower's never felt better. It's
so true.
Nice. All that stuff you take for granted
comes
back around, and you have a greater appreciation. So I understand the applesauce.
Yeah, and you know, Baton Death March is perfect because it's a commemoration to the actual event and everything that happened. So
maybe we can do something with bring your coffee into it in some way. I love every bit of that.
Would love it. We can team got your 6. There we go.
We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us on yet another episode of Brewing Better Days, the Coffee Shop Talk podcast. My name's Eric Hadley. I'm your host. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you find some value, please like, subscribe, share. Much appreciated. Thank you for all that you do. God bless. Have a great one. And remember, stay pro-caffeinated.
You've been listening to Brewing Better Days. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on Instagram at Brewing Better Days and check the website at www.brewingbetterdays.com. Hey, life's hard, but it sure is easier with a nice cup of coffee. See you next time on Brewing Better Days.